The cabin firelight flickers across Evan's tear-streaked face as Darius holds up a platinum collar with a small lock dangling from black leather. "This one locks," Darius says, his deep voice unwavering. "Only I have the key. You can't take it off without me. Ever." 10 years of marriage, 10 years of complete trust, culminate in this single moment. Evan's fingers tremble as he touches his current collar, the one he's worn proudly through every challenge, every whispered judgment. His husband is asking for something more now. Permanent, irreversible ownership. "Yes," Evan whispers through tears. "I want to be yours so completely there's no question." The lock clicks shut around his throat. Forever bound. No escape. No going back. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you are watching from, and subscribe. Evan's on his knees between Darius's massive thighs, the taste still coating his tongue. The older man's deep voice rumbles approval as those huge hands cup his face. "Good boy, you took every drop. Now come here." Darius pats his lap, eyes dark with promise. "Time for your real reward. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe." The help wanted sign had been taped to the gym window for 3 weeks before Evan finally worked up the courage to walk through the door. 23 years old, fresh out of college with a degree that wasn't opening any doors, he'd spent the last 2 months watching his savings evaporate while sending out resumes that disappeared into the void. The Iron Temple Gym sat on the corner of Morrison and Fifth, a no-nonsense establishment that catered to serious lifters rather than the Lululemon crowd. Evan had walked past it 100 times, always glancing through the windows at the men inside, telling himself he was just curious about the equipment. He was lying to himself. He knew it. Had known it for years. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and the smell hit him immediately. Sweat, rubber, metal, and something else. Testosterone, maybe. The scent of men pushing their bodies to the limit. It made Evan's mouth go dry. "Can I help you?" The voice came from behind the front desk, and Evan turned toward it, then forgot how to breathe. The man was massive. Not gym massive, though he clearly spent plenty of time lifting. He was naturally huge, built on a scale that made Evan feel like a child. 6'6" at least, with shoulders that seemed to span half the desk. His skin was deep brown, smooth and perfect, stretched over muscles that moved like living architecture beneath his fitted black shirt. His head was shaved clean, emphasizing the strong lines of his skull, the sharp angle of his jaw. But it was his eyes that pinned Evan in place. Dark brown, almost black, intelligent and assessing. They swept over Evan with an intensity that made him feel stripped bare despite being fully clothed. Evan started, his voice coming out rougher than intended. He cleared his throat. "I'm here about the job." The man's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "That's so. What makes you think you're qualified?" Evan forced himself to stand straighter, to meet those eyes even though everything in him wanted to look away. "I need work. I'm reliable. I learn fast. And I'm not afraid of hard work." Not an answer to my question. The man stood, and Evan had to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. The movement revealed just how thoroughly he was outmatched physically. This man could break him without effort. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, it sent heat coiling low in Evan's belly. "You ever worked in a gym before?" "No, sir." The honorific slipped out automatically, and Evan saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Approval, maybe. Or hunger. "Name's Darius Monroe. I own this place." The man came around the desk, moving with surprising grace for someone so large. "You got a name?" "Evan Clark." Darius circled him slowly, and Evan fought the urge to turn, to track his movement. He forced himself to stand still, feeling those eyes cataloging every detail of his body. He knew what Darius was seeing. Evan was slender, almost delicate in comparison, 5'9", maybe 140 pounds. He'd always been small, always been the one other guys overlooked or dismissed. "You're thin," Darius observed, coming to stand in front of him again. "Weak looking. Members here are gonna eat you alive if you can't handle yourself." Evan's jaw tightened. "I can handle myself." "Can you?" Darius stepped closer, using his size deliberately. "Testing. You look like a strong wind would knock you over, boy." The word boy sent electricity racing down Evan's spine. He should object to it, should establish boundaries. Instead, he heard himself say, "I'm stronger than I look." Darius's hand shot out, fingers wrapping around Evan's bicep. The touch was casual, assessing, but Evan felt it like a brand. Those fingers completely encircled his arm, and when Darius squeezed gently, Evan couldn't suppress his sharp intake of breath. "Barely any muscle," Darius said, his voice dropping lower. "Haven't been taking care of yourself, have you?" "I've been busy with school." Excuses. Darius released his arm, but didn't step back. "If you work here, you work out here. Can't have staff that looks like they're wasting away. Members need to see strength, discipline. Understand?" "Yes, sir." There it was again, that flicker in Darius's eyes. His hand came up and Evan thought he might touch him again. Instead, Darius gestured toward the gym floor. "Show me what you can do. Bench press, over there." Evan's stomach dropped. He'd been to the gym maybe 5 times in his life and never seriously. But he couldn't admit that now. Not when he needed this job so desperately. He walked to the bench press, acutely aware of Darius following behind him. The bar was already loaded with plates that looked impossibly heavy. Evan did quick math. 2 45-pound plates on each side, plus the 45-pound bar. 135 pounds. He'd never lifted anything close to that. "That's," he started, but Darius was already pulling the plates off. "I know. Just the bar for now. Let me see your form. Just the bar. 45 pounds. Evan could do that." "Probably." He lay back on the bench, gripping the bar with sweaty palms. Darius stood at the head of the bench, positioned to spot him, and Evan was suddenly very aware that if he looked up, he'd be staring directly at Darius's crotch. He kept his eyes fixed on the bar instead. "Whenever you're ready," Darius said. Evan lifted the bar off the rack. It was heavier than he expected, and his arms shook immediately. He lowered it to his chest, then pushed back up, his muscles screaming in protest. He managed 3 reps before his arms started to give out. Darius's hands came under the bar, helping him guide it back to the rack. His face appeared in Evan's line of sight, upside down, close enough that Evan could smell him. Cologne and clean sweat and something indefinably masculine. "Pathetic," Darius said, but there was no real heat in it. "When's the last time you did any physical work?" "It's been a while," Evan admitted, sitting up. His arms were already aching. Darius studied him for a long moment, then unexpectedly, he smiled. It transformed his entire face, softening the harsh lines into something almost gentle. "Lucky for you, I like a project. You're hired." Evan blinked. "Just like that. Just like that. But we're doing this my way. You work the front desk, clean equipment, basic maintenance, and every day before your shift, you work out with me. I'm going to build you up, teach you how to move properly, how to be strong." The way he said it, like he was making a promise rather than stating job duties, made Evan's pulse quicken. "Okay. Wages are minimum plus tips from personal training clients I send your way. You'll get a free membership and access to our supplement supplies. Hours are 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., 5 days a week. You can handle getting up that early?" Evan nodded, even though the idea of being coherent at 5 a.m. was daunting. "Good." Darius extended his hand, and Evan took it. The size difference was even more apparent like this, Darius's hand completely engulfing his. "You start Monday. Don't be late. I don't tolerate laziness or excuses." "Yes, sir." Darius held his hand a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across Evan's knuckles in a gesture that might have been accidental, but felt deliberate. Then he released him and stepped back. "Go home. Rest up. Monday morning, your life changes." Evan left the gym in a daze, Darius's words echoing in his head. Your life changes. He had no idea how prophetic that statement would prove to be. Monday morning came too early. Evan's alarm went off at 4:30, and he dragged himself out of bed with a groan. By the time he arrived at the gym at 4:55, he was running on coffee and anxiety. Darius was already there, of course. He looked like he'd been awake for hours, fresh and alert in a fitted tank top that showed off arms the size of Evan's thighs. He gave Evan a once-over, his expression unreadable. "On time." "Good. Go change. We're starting with legs today." Evan had brought workout clothes as instructed, and he changed quickly in the locker room. When he emerged, Darius was waiting by the squat rack, arms crossed over his chest. The next hour was torture. Darius put him through a leg workout that left Evan's thighs screaming and his lungs burning. But what made it truly overwhelming was the way Darius taught. He didn't just demonstrate and step back. He put his hands on Evan constantly, adjusting his stance, correcting his form, positioning his body with casual dominance that made Evan's head spin. "Feet wider," Darius said, his boot tapping the inside of Evan's foot to push it outward. His hand settled on Evan's lower back. "Arch here, keep your core tight." Evan tried to focus on the instructions, but all he could think about was the warmth of that hand, the size of it, the casual strength in the touch. Darius was standing close behind him, close enough that Evan could feel body heat radiating from him. "Breathe," Darius commanded. "You're holding your breath, in through your nose, out through your mouth." Evan obeyed, and Darius's hand moved to his stomach, pressing firm against his abdomen. "Feel that? You need to breathe from here, not your chest." Deep breaths. "Let me feel your stomach expand." The intimacy of the instruction, of Darius's hand on his stomach, of being told to breathe in a way that would press him back against that palm, it was too much. Evan's body responded in ways he couldn't control, and he was grateful for the loose gym shorts that hid his reaction. If Darius noticed, he didn't comment. He just kept drilling Evan through the movements, his voice a constant presence, commanding and patient in equal measure. When the workout finally ended, Evan could barely walk. "Good start," Darius said, handing him a water bottle. "You've got potential, just need to unlock it." Evan drank gratefully, his hands shaking with exhaustion. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is just day one. By the end of the month, you're going to hate me." He said it with that same almost smile, and Evan found himself returning it despite the pain in his legs. The rest of the shift was easier. Darius showed him how to work the front desk system, how to check members in, how to handle basic customer service. It was simple enough, and Evan picked it up quickly. But he was constantly aware of Darius moving through the gym, helping members, demonstrating techniques, his presence impossible to ignore. Members came and went throughout the morning. Most were men, ranging from college age to their 50s, all serious about their training. A few greeted Evan with friendly nods. Others ignored him entirely, too focused on their workouts to care about the new desk guy. One regular, a guy about Evan's age named Tyler, lingered at the desk after checking in. "New here?" "First day," Evan confirmed. "Cool." Tyler's smile was friendly, open. "If you need any help learning the equipment or whatever, let me know. I've been coming here for years. Thanks. I appreciate that." Tyler left to start his workout, and Evan felt eyes on him. He looked up to find Darius watching from across the gym floor, his expression unreadable. For a moment, their gazes locked. Then Darius turned away, his attention returning to the member he was spotting. The interaction left Evan unsettled in ways he couldn't quite name. The days fell into a rhythm. Every morning, Darius would put Evan through brutal workouts, his hands constantly on Evan's body, adjusting and correcting and teaching. Then Evan would man the desk while Darius trained clients or worked out himself. Evan tried not to watch, but it was impossible. Darius moved with such controlled power, such absolute confidence in his body, that Evan couldn't look away. He noticed other things too. The way Darius's eyes would track him across the gym floor, the way his jaw would tighten when other men spoke to Evan, the way his hands would linger just a fraction too long during their training sessions. 3 weeks in, Tyler asked Evan out for coffee. They were standing at the front desk, Tyler freshly showered after his workout, his hair still damp. "There's a place down the street that has great espresso. Want to grab some after your shift?" Evan hesitated. Tyler was nice, attractive enough, and clearly interested. It was exactly the kind of normal attention Evan should want. But before he could answer, Darius appeared at his elbow like a storm cloud. "Evan's busy after his shift," Darius said, his voice flat. "He trains with me for another hour. Then he needs to rest. His body's not used to this kind of work yet." Tyler's smile faltered. "Oh, sure, man. Maybe another time." He left quickly, and Evan turned to Darius with a frown. "I could have answered for myself. Could you?" Darius's eyes were dark, intense, because it looked to me like you were about to say yes. "Maybe I was." Darius leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. "That boy's not what you need. And you know what I need? I know you're not ready for whatever he's offering." Darius's gaze was steady, unflinching. "You can barely handle what I'm giving you, and I'm just teaching you to lift." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning Evan didn't quite dare to examine. His pulse quickened, his breath coming faster. "What are you giving me?" "Discipline," Darius said. "Structure. Someone who sees your potential and pushes you to reach it. Someone who doesn't let you make excuses or run away when things get hard." Evan swallowed hard. "And Tyler can't give me that?" "Tyler wants to take you out for coffee and pretend you're equals." Darius stepped closer, lowering his voice. "But we both know that's not what you need. You need someone who sees that you're lost, that you're searching for direction, for purpose. Someone who's willing to give you that, even when it's uncomfortable." The words struck too close to truth. Evan had been lost, drifting since graduation, going through the motions without any real sense of what he was doing or where he was going. And somehow, in just 3 weeks, Darius had seen that, had identified the empty space inside him that Evan had been trying to ignore. "How do you know what I need?" Evan whispered. "Because I see you." Darius's hand came up, his finger hooking under Evan's chin, tilting his face up. "Really see you, not just the surface. And what I see is someone who's been playing it safe his whole life, hiding from what he really wants, because he's scared of what people might think." Evan wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come, because Darius was right. He had been hiding from his desires, from himself, from the truth of what made him feel alive. "I'm going to ask you a question," Darius continued, his voice dropping even lower. "And I want you to answer honestly. Can you do that?" Evan nodded, not trusting his voice. "When I put my hands on you during training, when I correct your form and move your body where it needs to be, how does that make you feel?" Evan's face flamed. He started, but Darius's finger pressed against his lips. "Honestly," Darius repeated. "No lies, no hiding, just the truth." Evan closed his eyes, gathering courage. "It makes me feel like I can't breathe, like everything else disappears except your touch. Like I want more, even though I shouldn't." When he opened his eyes, Darius was smiling. That same soft smile that transformed his harsh features into something almost gentle. Good boy. That's what I thought. The words good boy sent a shiver through Evan's entire body. His eyes widened, and Darius's smile grew. You like that, don't you? Being told you're good. Being praised for doing what you're told. Evan couldn't speak, could only stare up at this man who was dissecting him with such casual precision. Here's what's going to happen, Darius said, his thumb brushing across Evan's jaw. You're going to keep working here, keep training with me, keep letting me teach you, and eventually, when you're ready, we're going to have a longer conversation about what you need and what I'm willing to give you. But until then, no coffee dates with boys who can't handle what you really are. He stepped back, releasing Evan, and the loss of contact felt like being dropped into cold water. A member walked in, and Darius's professional mask slid back into place as he greeted them. But Evan stood there trembling, his world tilted on its axis, because he finally understood what had been building between them. It wasn't just attraction or desire, it was recognition. Darius saw him, saw the deepest parts of him that Evan had spent years trying to hide, and instead of being repulsed, he wanted it, wanted to claim it, shape it, own it. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Evan went through the motions automatically, checking members in, answering questions, cleaning equipment, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying Darius's words on an endless loop. When 1 p.m. finally arrived and it was time to close, Darius called Evan into his office. It was a small space, barely big enough for a desk and 2 chairs, but Darius's presence filled it completely. Sit, Darius commanded, gesturing to one of the chairs. Evan sat, his hands folded in his lap, waiting. Darius studied him for a long moment. Then he said, I'm going to be direct with you because I don't believe in playing games. I want you. Have since the moment you walked through that door looking lost and desperate. But I don't do casual. Don't do brief flings or experimentation. If I take you, it's completely. You understand what that means? Evan's mouth was dry. No. It means you belong to me. It means I decide what you need and when you need it. It means you surrender control and trust me to take care of you. Darius leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. It means you stop hiding from what you are and embrace it fully, because I see it in you. That need to submit, to serve, to be owned by someone stronger. You've been fighting it your whole life, but it's there and it's not going away. How do you know all this? Evan's voice came out barely above a whisper. Because I've seen it before, because I know the signs. Because I've been doing this long enough to recognize when someone's carrying shame about desires they shouldn't be ashamed of. Darius stood, coming around the desk to stand in front of Evan. He was so large, so overwhelming, and Evan felt small and vulnerable in ways that should have scared him but didn't. I'm not going to rush you, Darius continued. You need time to think about what I'm offering. Time to decide if you're brave enough to take it. But I need you to understand that this isn't just about sex, though there will be plenty of that. It's about giving yourself over completely to someone who knows how to handle you properly. And if I say no, then we continue as we are. You work here, I train you, and we keep our relationship professional. I won't push, won't pressure, won't make things uncomfortable, but the offer expires. I don't give second chances with things like this. Evan looked up at him, this massive man who somehow understood him better than he understood himself. What do I need to decide? Whether you trust me enough to let me show you who you really are. The weight of the question settled over Evan like a physical thing. This was a crossroads moment. He could feel it. One path led back to safety, to the careful, hidden life he'd been living. The other led into territory unknown and terrifying and thrilling all at once. Can I have time to think about it? Darius nodded. Take the rest of the week. But Evan, he paused, his eyes intense. Don't overthink it. Your body already knows the answer. You just need your mind to catch up. Evan went home in a daze, Darius's words echoing in his head. The rest of the week passed in strange limbo. They continued their morning training sessions, but Darius was scrupulously professional now. His hands still corrected Evan's form, but the touches were brief, clinical. The intensity in his eyes was banked, controlled. It should have been a relief. Instead, Evan found himself missing that overwhelming attention, that sense of being seen and wanted completely. Thursday night, Evan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to logic his way through the decision. Darius understood him in ways no one else ever had. Con, giving up control was terrifying. The idea of being claimed by someone so thoroughly made his body respond with desperate need. Con, what if he wasn't strong enough to handle it? What if he failed? Friday morning, during their workout, Darius had Evan doing deadlifts. The bar was loaded heavier than usual, and Evan struggled with the weight. His form started to break down, his back rounding dangerously. "Stop!" Darius commanded, his hands immediately on Evan's hips, guiding him to set the bar down. He turned Evan around, his expression stern. "You're not focused. Where's your head?" Evan's defenses crumbled. "I can't stop thinking about what you said, about what you offered. It's all I can think about. And I'm scared of me, of myself, of what it means if I say yes, of what I might become." Darius's hands moved to frame Evan's face, tilting it up. His voice was gentle when he spoke. "You're not becoming something new. You're finally becoming yourself. The real you, not the version you've been pretending to be for everyone else. How do you know I won't disappoint you? You can't disappoint me by being who you are. You can only disappoint me by continuing to hide from it." The simple certainty in his voice broke something loose in Evan's chest. A dam that had been holding back years of suppressed truth suddenly gave way. "Okay," Evan whispered. "Yes, I want this. Want you. Want everything you offered." Darius's smile was slow and satisfied, like a predator that had finally cornered its prey. "Good boy. That's exactly what I wanted to hear." He kissed Evan then, right there in the middle of the gym floor. It was nothing like Evan had imagined his first kiss with a man would be. There was no hesitation, no gentleness. Darius claimed his mouth with the same dominance he brought to everything else, his tongue sweeping in to taste and conquer. One massive hand cupped the back of Evan's head, holding him in place, while the other splayed across his lower back, pulling their bodies flush together. Evan made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a moan. His hands came up to grip Darius's arms, needing something to anchor himself to as the world spun around him. He'd never been kissed like this, never been touched like this, and it was overwhelming in the best possible way. When Darius finally pulled back, Evan was breathing hard, his lips swollen and sensitive. His entire body felt like it was vibrating with need. "Tonight," Darius said, his voice rough, after closing, "you're going to come to my apartment, and we're going to begin your real education." "Okay," Evan managed. And Evan, Darius's hand tightened in his hair, just enough to make him gasp. "From this moment forward, you belong to me, completely. We clear?" "Crystal clear, sir." The word "sir" made Darius's eyes darken with hunger. "Good. Now finish your workout. I want you tired but not exhausted tonight. You're going to need your energy." The rest of the day dragged by with agonizing slowness. Every minute felt like an hour. Evan couldn't focus on anything except the knowledge that tonight, everything would change. Members came and went, but he barely saw them. His entire world had narrowed to anticipation and need. Darius, to his credit, maintained his professional demeanor throughout the day. But Evan caught him watching several times, his expression intense and proprietary, like he was already claiming Evan in his mind, planning exactly what he was going to do once they were alone. When 1 p.m. finally arrived and the last member left, Darius locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. Then he turned to Evan with that predatory smile. "Come here." Evan went, drawn like a magnet. Darius pulled him close, one arm around his waist, the other hand cupping his face. "Last chance to change your mind," Darius said. "Once we start this, once I claim you properly, there's no going back. You'll be mine in ways you can't even imagine yet. So if you're having doubts, now's the time to speak up." Evan met his eyes steadily. "No doubts. I want this. Want you. Then let's go." Darius lived in a loft apartment above a coffee shop 3 blocks from the gym. The space was surprisingly domestic, furnished with care and attention to detail, but Evan barely registered the decor. All he could focus on was Darius and the way those dark eyes tracked his every movement. "Nervous?" Darius asked, locking the door behind them. "Terrified," Evan admitted. "Good. Fear makes you honest, makes you present." Darius moved closer, and Evan tilted his head back to maintain eye contact. "I'm going to ask you questions. I need you to answer truthfully. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." "Have you ever been with a man before?" "No, sir." "Have you ever been with anyone before?" Evan's face flamed. "No, sir." Darius's hand came up to cup his face, thumb stroking his cheek. "Perfect. That means I get to be your first everything. Get to teach you exactly how to please me." The possessiveness in his voice made Evan shiver. "I don't know what I'm doing. I know. That's what makes it perfect." Darius leaned down, his breath warm against Evan's ear. "You're going to trust me to guide you through this. Going to let me show you what your body was made for." His hands moved to Evan's shirt, slowly unbuttoning it. "This comes off. Then your pants. I want to see all of you." Evan's hands trembled as he helped remove his clothes. Soon he stood in just his boxer briefs, feeling more exposed than he ever had in his life. Darius stepped back, his eyes raking over Evan's body with an intensity that made him want to cover himself. "Don't," Darius commanded, sensing the impulse. "Don't hide from me. You're beautiful exactly as you are." "I'm too thin," Evan protested. "You're perfect for what I need." Darius moved closer again, his hands settling on Evan's hips. "And I'm going to build you up, make you stronger. But right now, like this, you're exactly what I want." He kissed Evan again, deeper this time, more demanding. His hands explored Evan's bare skin, mapping ribs and spine and the slight muscle that 3 weeks of training had already started to build. Evan melted into the touch, into the overwhelming presence of this man who was claiming him so thoroughly. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius guided Evan toward the bedroom. The room was dominated by a massive bed, and Evan's stomach clenched with nervous anticipation. "On your knees," Darius commanded, his voice dropping to that deep rumble that made Evan's body respond instantly. Evan sank to his knees without hesitation. The carpet was soft beneath him, and he looked up at Darius with wide eyes, waiting for instruction. "Good boy," Darius praised, and those words sent heat flooding through Evan's body. "You look so perfect like that, like you were made to kneel for me." His hand came down to cup Evan's face, thumb tracing his lower lip. Open, Evan's lips parted automatically, and Darius's thumb slipped inside, pressing down on his tongue. The gesture was intimate and dominant, claiming even this part of Evan's body as his own. "That's it. Get used to the feeling of being filled, of taking what I give you." He withdrew his thumb, and Evan whimpered at the loss. Darius smiled, dark and satisfied. "Eager already. I like that." His hands moved to his belt, and Evan's eyes widened as he realized what was coming. You're going to take me in that pretty mouth. Going to learn how to please me properly. I don't know how, Evan whispered. I'll teach you. That's what tonight is about. Teaching you everything you need to know about serving me. Darius freed himself from his pants, and Evan's breath caught. He'd known Darius was big everywhere, but seeing the proof of it, thick and hard and impossibly large, made his head spin with equal parts desire and intimidation. Don't panic, Darius said, his hand gentle in Evan's hair. We'll take it slow. Start with your tongue. Just taste me. Get used to the feel of me in your mouth. Evan leaned forward, his tongue darting out to taste. The skin was hot and smooth, salty with clean sweat. He heard Darius's sharp intake of breath and felt emboldened. He licked again, more confident this time, exploring with growing curiosity. That's good, Darius praised, just like that. Take your time, learn me. Evan grew bolder, his tongue tracing patterns, discovering what made Darius's breath hitch, what made those large hands tighten in his hair. When he finally took the head into his mouth, Darius groaned, the sound reverberating through his chest. Perfect, Darius breathed. So fucking perfect. Take more, as much as you can. Evan tried, but it was too much, too big. He gagged and pulled back, tears springing to his eyes. Easy, Darius soothed, his hand gentle now. Don't force it. We'll work up to it. For now, just focus on what you can take. They spent what felt like hours like that, Darius patiently teaching Evan how to use his mouth, how to breathe through his nose, how to relax his throat. And slowly, gradually, Evan took more, his confidence growing with each word of praise Darius gave him. Such a good boy, Darius kept saying, learning so fast, taking me so well. You were made for this, weren't you? Made to be on your knees for me. The words, combined with the act itself, the submission of it, the sheer intimacy of pleasuring someone this way, pushed Evan into a headspace he'd never experienced before. Everything else fell away. There was only Darius's voice, Darius's taste, Darius's hands guiding him. When Darius finally finished with a groan that shook the walls, giving Evan no choice but to swallow everything he was given, Evan felt a surge of pride so intense it was almost painful. He'd done it. He'd pleased Darius. He'd been good. Darius pulled him up, crushing him against that massive chest. Good boy. You swallowed every drop like I knew you would? Perfect. So fucking perfect. Evan couldn't speak, too overwhelmed by sensation and emotion. Darius carried him to the bed, laying him down with surprising gentleness. Then those huge hands were removing the last of Evan's clothing, leaving him completely bare and vulnerable. Now, Darius said, his voice dark with promise, it's time for your real reward. Time to show you what it feels like to be claimed properly. His hands moved over Evan's body, touching and exploring, learning every response. And when Darius's mouth followed his hands, when that talented tongue traced patterns on Evan's sensitive skin, Evan thought he might die from the overwhelming pleasure of it. Darius worshipped him with a thoroughness that bordered on overwhelming. He found places Evan didn't know could feel good, drew sounds from him that Evan had never made before. By the time Darius finally settled between his legs, Evan was a trembling, desperate mess. This might hurt at first, Darius warned, his voice gentle despite the hunger in his eyes. But I'll be careful. I'll make it good for you. His preparation was thorough, patient, working Evan open with a skill that suggested years of experience. Every time Evan thought he couldn't take more, Darius would find some new angle that made stars explode behind his eyes. Please, Evan heard himself begging. Please, I know what you need, Darius interrupted, his voice firm. And I'm going to give it to you, but you have to trust me. Can you do that? "Yes," Evan gasped. "Yes, sir, I trust you. Good boy. Now sit on Daddy's lap." The command made Evan's head spin. Darius repositioned them so he was sitting up against the headboard, and Evan understood what he wanted. With shaking legs, Evan straddled Darius's thick thighs, feeling impossibly small and vulnerable in this position. "That's it," Darius encouraged, his hands steadying Evan's hips. "Take what you need. Take me at your own pace." And Evan did, slowly sinking down, feeling the stretch and burn that gave way to overwhelming fullness. Darius's hands never left him, supporting and guiding. When he was finally fully seated, Evan could barely breathe. "Perfect," Darius breathed. "You're so fucking perfect. Taking all of me like you were made for it." He let Evan adjust, his hands soothing over trembling muscles. Then he began to move, setting a rhythm that was both demanding and careful, pushing Evan toward pleasure he'd never imagined possible. Evan clung to those massive shoulders, his face buried against Darius's neck, overwhelmed by sensation. Every nerve ending felt alive, on fire. And through it all, Darius kept up a steady stream of praise and encouragement, telling Evan how good he was, how perfect, how beautifully he was taking everything Darius gave him. When release finally crashed over Evan, it was more intense than anything he'd ever felt. His vision whited out, his body convulsing. Darius held him through it, his own control finally breaking as he followed Evan over the edge. In the aftermath, they lay tangled together, Evan sprawled across Darius's chest. Those large hands stroked over his back, soothing and possessive. "How do you feel?" Darius asked quietly. Evan took inventory. His body ached in ways both painful and satisfying. His mind felt clear for the first time in years. And his heart felt full. "Complete," he whispered, "like I finally found where I belong." Darius's arms tightened around him. "Good, because you do belong. Here, with me, mine, yours," Evan agreed, the word feeling right on his tongue. "Completely yours." They lay like that for a long time, Darius's hands never stopping their gentle exploration of Evan's body. Eventually, he shifted them so they were lying side by side, face to face. "This is just the beginning," Darius said, his fingers tracing Evan's jaw. "There's so much more I'm going to teach you. So many ways I'm going to claim you and use you and make you mine." The words should have been intimidating. Instead, they filled Evan with anticipation. "I'm ready," he said, "for all of it." Darius smiled, that soft smile Evan was coming to cherish. "I know you are. That's why I chose you." They fell asleep like that, Evan cradled in Darius's arms, both of them understanding that everything had changed. The careful life Evan had been living was over. In its place was something new and terrifying and absolutely right. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, new ways for Darius to claim and shape him. But tonight, Evan let himself simply exist in this moment, safe and owned, and exactly where he was meant to be. "Good boy," Darius murmured one last time before sleep claimed them both. And Evan smiled against his chest, finally understanding what those words really meant. Not just praise, but recognition, acceptance, a promise that he was exactly what Darius wanted, exactly as he was, the beginning of everything. Morning came with golden light filtering through unfamiliar windows. Evan woke slowly, disoriented at first, then remembered where he was, who he was with, what had happened. His body ached in ways both painful and satisfying. Every movement reminded him of how thoroughly Darius had claimed him, and the memory made heat pool low in his belly all over again. A massive arm was draped across his waist, and Evan could feel the solid wall of Darius's chest against his back. The man was still asleep, his breathing deep and even. Evan lay very still, not wanting to disturb him. using the quiet moment to process everything that had changed. He'd given himself to Darius completely, had surrendered control in ways he'd never imagined possible, and instead of feeling diminished or ashamed, he felt more himself than he ever had before, like he'd finally stopped pretending and embraced his true nature. The arm around his waist tightened, and Darius's voice rumbled against his ear. "You're thinking too loud." Evan smiled despite himself. "Sorry, don't apologize." Darius pressed a kiss to his shoulder, the gesture surprisingly tender. "Tell me what's going on in that head." "Just processing, trying to understand how this feels so right when it should feel wrong." Darius shifted them so they were face to face, his dark eyes serious. "Nothing about what we did is wrong. Shame only exists when you let other people's judgments matter more than your own truth. And what's my truth? That you were made to submit, to serve, to be owned by someone who understands what you need." Darius's hand cupped Evan's face. "That's not something to be ashamed of. It's a gift you give, and it takes real strength to surrender that completely." Evan closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. "I've spent so long hating." "I know, but you're done hiding now. With me, you get to be exactly who you are, no masks, no pretending. What if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough at this? You can't mess up by being honest about what you need. And as for being good enough," Darius's thumb traced Evan's lower lip. "You were perfect last night. Took everything I gave you and begged for more. That's exactly what I want from you." The praise made Evan's chest warm. "What happens now?" "Now we start building our life together. You keep working at the gym, keep training with me, but you also move in here. I want you in my bed every night. Want to wake up to you every morning." Evan's eyes widened. "Move in? Already?" "Why wait?" Darius asked, his voice matter of fact. "We both know this is permanent. We both know you belong to me now. Might as well make it official." The certainty in his voice should have been overwhelming. Instead, it made Evan feel secure in ways he'd never experienced. Darius wasn't asking or hoping. He was stating facts, and something in Evan responded to that absolute confidence. "Okay," Evan whispered. "When?" "Today. We'll go to your apartment after work, pack your things, bring them back here. No point in delaying." Before Evan could respond, Darius's hand slid down his body, and suddenly thinking became impossible. What followed was a slow, thorough claiming that proved last night hadn't been a fluke. Darius knew exactly how to touch him, exactly how to reduce him to a trembling, begging mess. By the time they finally made it out of bed, Evan could barely walk. Darius carried him to the shower, washing him with gentle hands that were at odds with the bruises already forming on Evan's hips and thighs. "You're going to be sore for a few days," Darius said, his fingers tracing over a particularly dark mark. "Next time won't be as intense. Your body will adjust. Next time." The promise of it sent anticipation through Evan's exhausted frame. They arrived at the gym just before 5, and the morning workout was gentler than usual. Darius seemed to understand that Evan needed recovery time, so he focused on stretching and mobility work instead of heavy lifting. But his hands were still everywhere, still touching and correcting and claiming with casual possession. The regular members who came in noticed the change immediately. Evan moved differently, held himself differently, and the way Darius looked at him left no doubt about what had happened between them. Tyler showed up at 7, took one look at Evan, and his face fell. "Oh," he said quietly, "I guess I really am too late." Evan felt a flash of guilt, but Darius appeared at his side before he could respond. "He was always too late," Darius said, his hand settling possessively on Evan's lower back. "Evan's mine. Been mine since the day he walked through that door." Tyler nodded slowly, then managed a sad smile. "Lucky guy, both of you." He headed to the locker room, and Evan turned to Darius. That was harsh. That was honest. Darius's expression was unapologetic. I don't share, and I don't leave room for misunderstanding. Everyone who comes through that door needs to know you're taken. The possessiveness should have bothered Evan. Instead, it made him feel valued, wanted, claimed in the best possible way. The day passed in a comfortable rhythm. Between checking in members and cleaning equipment, Evan caught himself watching Darius constantly. The way he moved, the way he interacted with clients, the casual confidence he brought to everything. And every time Evan looked, Darius would catch his eye and smile, that same predatory smile that promised things Evan was still learning to name. At 1 p.m., they closed up and headed to Evan's apartment. It was a tiny studio in a run-down building, barely furnished and depressingly empty. Darius looked around with a frown. You've been living like this. It was all I could afford, Evan said defensively. Darius pulled him close, his expression softening. Not anymore. You're with me now. I take care of what's mine. They packed Evan's meager belongings quickly. It all fit into 4 boxes and 2 suitcases, a pathetically small representation of 23 years of life. But Darius didn't comment on how little there was. He just loaded everything into his truck and drove them back to the loft. Over the next weeks, Evan's life transformed completely. He moved into Darius's space, his clothes hanging next to Darius's in the closet, his toothbrush next to Darius's in the bathroom. The domesticity of it should have felt strange, but it didn't. It felt right, like pieces finally clicking into place. Their routine solidified. Morning workouts where Darius pushed him harder each day, building muscle and strength. Days at the gym where Evan manned the desk and learned the business. Evenings where Darius would teach him new things, push new boundaries, claim him in new ways. And always, always, there was that praise. Good boy. You're doing so well. Perfect. Taking me so perfectly. The words became a lifeline for Evan. Proof that he was succeeding, that he was pleasing Darius, that he was enough. But it wasn't just physical. Darius also insisted on feeding him properly, making sure he ate enough to support the muscle he was building. Would cook elaborate meals and watch Evan eat every bite, satisfaction clear in his eyes when Evan cleaned his plate. You're filling out, Darius observed one evening, his hands mapping the new muscle on Evan's arms and shoulders. Starting to look like you belong here. Do I? Evan asked quietly. Really belong? Darius turned him around, his hands framing Evan's face. You've belonged to me since that first day. The only difference now is you're finally accepting it. He kissed Evan slowly, thoroughly, until they ended up on the couch with Evan in Darius's lap, right where he belonged. This position had become familiar, one of Darius's favorites. He liked having Evan straddling him, liked the way it made Evan work for his pleasure, liked the control it gave him. Tell me what you need, Darius commanded, his hands steady on Evan's hips. You, Evan gasped. Always you. More specific. Tell me exactly what you want me to do to you. Evan's face burned, but Darius had been teaching him to voice his desires without shame. I want you inside me, want to feel you claiming me, want you to make me yours all over again. Good boy, such a good boy, learning to ask for what he needs. Darius made him work for it, made him take what he needed at his own pace. And all the while his voice provided steady encouragement and praise, telling Evan how beautiful he looked, how perfectly he took him, how much Darius loved watching him surrender. When they finally collapsed together, both spent and satisfied, Darius held Evan close, his massive hands gentle now. I love you, Darius said, the words simple and certain. Probably loved you before I even knew your name. Just took one look at you and knew you were meant to be mine. Evan's throat tightened with emotion. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. Don't be scared." Darius pressed a kiss to his forehead. "I've got you. Always will." 2 months in, Evan's transformation was visible to everyone. He'd gained 15 pounds of muscle, his body filling out in ways that made him look healthier, stronger. His confidence had grown too, the way he moved through the gym, the way he interacted with members. All of it spoke to someone who'd found his place. But more than the physical changes, there was something different in his eyes. A contentment that hadn't been there before. A sense of belonging that radiated from him. One Saturday, Morrison stopped by the gym. He was an old friend of Darius's, someone who'd known him for years. He took one look at Evan, then at Darius, and smiled. "So this is him?" Morrison said. "The one you've been telling me about." "This is Evan," Darius confirmed, his hand settling possessively on Evan's shoulder. "Mine." Morrison extended his hand, and Evan shook it. "Nice to finally meet you. Darius doesn't shut up about you." Evan blushed, but Darius just laughed. "Why would I? He's perfect." Morrison studied them for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're good for him. I haven't seen Darius this settled in years. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." After Morrison left, Evan turned to Darius. "You talk about me to your friends?" "Of course I do. You're the most important thing in my life. Why wouldn't I tell people about you?" The simple certainty of it made Evan's chest warm. He was so used to being invisible, to being overlooked, that having someone claim him so openly still felt surreal. That night, Darius took him out to dinner at a nice restaurant. It was their first real date, and Evan was nervous about being seen in public as a couple. But Darius's confidence never wavered. He held Evan's hand across the table, kissed him without hesitation when the mood struck, made it absolutely clear that they were together. A few people stared. One couple got up and moved to a different section, but Darius didn't seem to notice or care, his entire focus on Evan. "You okay?" Darius asked, noticing Evan's tension. "Just not used to this. Being visible, being claimed so publicly. Get used to it." Darius's hand tightened on his. "I'm not hiding what we have. Not hiding you. You're mine, and I want everyone to know it." The fierceness in his voice made something settle in Evan's chest. This was real. This wasn't going to disappear the moment things got difficult. Darius was in this completely, publicly, permanently. After dinner, they walked through the city, Darius's arm around Evan's shoulders, claiming him with every step. When they got home, Darius made love to him with a tenderness that brought tears to Evan's eyes, worshiping him with hands and mouth until Evan was incoherent with pleasure. In the aftermath, as they lay tangled together, Darius said, "I want to take you somewhere next weekend. There's a cabin upstate that I own. Private, quiet. Just us for 2 days." Evan's heart raced. "That sounds perfect." "It will be," Darius promised. "Going to spend the entire weekend reminding you exactly who you belong to." The week leading up to the trip passed in a haze of anticipation. Darius seemed to take particular pleasure in building Evan's need, teasing him with touches that promised more, words that painted vivid pictures of what was coming. By Friday evening, when they finally loaded the truck and headed out of the city, Evan was wound so tight he could barely sit still. "Patience," Darius said, his hand settling on Evan's thigh. "Good things come to those who wait." The cabin was beautiful, nestled in the woods with a view of a lake. Inside, it was cozy and well-maintained, with a massive bed that dominated the single bedroom. Darius didn't give Evan time to explore. The moment they were inside with the door locked, he was on him, claiming his mouth with hungry kisses that stole Evan's breath. "Been waiting all week for this?" Darius growled against his lips. Wanted to have you alone, completely mine, with no interruptions. He picked Evan up like he weighed nothing, carrying him to the bedroom and laying him out on the bed. Then he proceeded to take Evan apart with methodical precision, finding every sensitive spot, every place that made Evan gasp and beg. You're so responsive, Darius murmured, his mouth tracing patterns on Evan's stomach. Love watching you fall apart for me. Love knowing I'm the only one who gets to see you like this. Only you, Evan gasped. Only want you. Darius rewarded him for the words, his hands and mouth working in tandem until Evan was a trembling mess. Then he finally gave Evan what he needed, claiming him thoroughly and completely. The weekend became a blur of sensation. They made love in the bed, in the shower, on the couch in front of the fireplace. Darius seemed insatiable, and Evan matched him desperately, his body responding to every touch, every command. But it wasn't just physical. They also talked for hours, sharing stories from their pasts, dreams for their futures. Darius told him about growing up in the South, about fighting his way out of poverty to build something of his own. Evan talked about his lonely childhood, about always feeling like he didn't quite fit anywhere. You fit with me, Darius said, pulling Evan close. That's all that matters. Sunday afternoon, as they lay in bed watching light play across the ceiling, Darius said, I want to give you something. He reached into the nightstand and pulled out a small box. Inside was a leather collar, simple but beautiful, with a small silver tag that read, Property of Darius. Evan's breath caught. It's yours if you want it. Darius's voice was serious. It's a symbol, a physical representation of what we are to each other. You wear this, and everyone knows you're claimed. You're mine. Evan touched the collar with trembling fingers. I want it. Darius fastened it around his neck, his hands gentle. There. Now you're really mine. Evan looked at himself in the mirror, at the collar circling his throat, visible proof of his submission. Instead of feeling trapped, he felt free. Free to be exactly who he was, free from the expectations and judgments that had weighed on him his whole life. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me. Darius pulled him back against his chest, his arms wrapping around Evan's waist. Thank you for trusting me enough to wear it, for being brave enough to accept what you are. They returned to the city Sunday night, both of them renewed and more connected than ever. Evan wore the collar under his shirt at first, self-conscious about what people might think. But Darius wouldn't let him hide it. No more hiding, remember? Wear it proudly or don't wear it at all. So Evan wore it openly and dealt with the stares and questions that followed. Most members at the gym didn't comment, though their eyes would linger on his throat. A few asked directly what it meant, and Evan learned to answer with Darius's same confidence. It means I belong to someone. It means I'm claimed. Some people understood, others didn't. But Evan stopped caring about the ones who didn't, because he had everything he needed in Darius's approval. 3 months became 6, 6 became 9. The gym flourished, with Evan taking on more responsibilities as Darius taught him the business side of things. They talked about eventually making him a partner, about building something together that would last beyond just their relationship. But challenges arose too. Evan's parents, who he'd barely spoken to in years, somehow found out about his relationship with Darius. His mother called, her voice tight with disappointment and confusion. What are you doing, Evan? Living with a man, wearing that thing around your neck. This isn't who you are. But it is, Evan said quietly, Darius standing beside him, a silent support. This is exactly who I am, Mom. I'm sorry you can't accept that. She hung up without another word, and Evan felt the loss keenly despite knowing it was inevitable. Darius held him as he cried, his voice steady and sure. You don't need people who can't love all of you. You have me. You have what we're building. That's enough. And it was. More than enough. Other challenges came in the form of self-doubt. Days where Evan would look at Darius and wonder why someone so strong, so confident, so utterly magnetic would want someone like him. Days where the voices in his head whispered that he wasn't enough, would never be enough. Darius learned to read those moods, to recognize when Evan needed extra reassurance. On those days, he'd be especially attentive, would remind Evan with words and actions exactly how valued he was. "You're mine," Darius would say, holding Evan close. "Mine because you're perfect for me, because you complete something I didn't know was incomplete. Don't ever doubt that." And slowly, gradually, Evan stopped doubting. The evidence was there in everything Darius did, in how he looked at Evan, touched him, claimed him, cared for him. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a phase. This was permanent, and it was real. A year in, the gym held an anniversary party. Members past and present came to celebrate, and Evan found himself at the center of it all. No longer the invisible boy behind the desk, but someone who belonged, who mattered. Morrison pulled him aside at one point, a beer in hand and a smile on his face. "You've come a long way from that scared kid who walked in here. Look at you now." Evan glanced over at Darius, who was demonstrating proper deadlift form to a group of new members. "All because of him." "Not all," Morrison corrected. "He gave you the opportunity, but you did the work. You chose to stay, chose to grow, chose to embrace what you needed instead of running from it. That takes real courage." The words settled something in Evan's chest. And he had been brave. Braver than he'd given himself credit for. Taken that first step through the gym door, accepting Darius's offer, surrendering control, all of it had required a kind of strength he hadn't known he possessed. Later that night, after the party wound down and they were alone in the loft, Darius pressed Evan against the wall with hungry kisses. "Proud of you," Darius murmured against his lips. "Watching you tonight, seeing how confident you've become, how comfortable in your own skin. You've transformed into something beautiful. You made me this way." "No," Darius corrected, his hands framing Evan's face. "I just gave you permission to be yourself. The rest was all you." He carried Evan to bed and made love to him with a combination of tenderness and possession that left Evan shaking. And when they finally collapsed together, sated and exhausted, Darius whispered, "Move in with me permanently, not just as a temporary thing. Officially, make this our home, not just mine." "It already is," Evan said, tears in his eyes. "It's been our home for months. Then let's make it legal. Put your name on the lease. Combine our finances. Build something permanent together." "Yes," Evan breathed. Yes to all of it. The practical aspects of combining their lives took time, but every step felt right. Evan's name went on the lease. They opened a joint bank account, made plans for the future, for expanding the gym, for maybe opening a second location someday. But more than the practical matters, they continued to deepen their connection. Darius kept pushing Evan's boundaries, kept teaching him new things about himself, and Evan kept surrendering, kept trusting, kept giving himself over completely. One evening, Darius introduced something new. He blindfolded Evan, took away his sight, and made him rely entirely on touch and sound and Darius's voice to guide him. The vulnerability of it was overwhelming, but Darius talked him through it, his voice a constant anchor. "That's it, good boy. Trust me, I've got you. You're safe. Always safe with me." Another time, Darius had Evan kneel for an hour, just practicing stillness and patience, teaching him that submission wasn't just about the physical acts, but about the mental surrender, about giving over control so completely that even waiting became an act of service. These lessons pushed Evan to edges he hadn't known existed, but Darius was always there, never asking for more than Evan could give, always providing the security and praise that made surrender possible. 18 months in, Evan looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself. The thin, scared boy who'd walked into the gym was gone. In his place was a man who'd gained 30 pounds of muscle, who moved with confidence, who wore his collar proudly. But more than the physical changes, his eyes were different, clear, certain, content. Darius came up behind him, his arms wrapping around Evan's waist, his chin resting on Evan's shoulder as they both looked at their reflection. "You see it now?" Darius asked quietly. "See what I saw from the beginning? I see someone who found where he belongs. You see someone who's exactly who he was meant to be." Darius pressed a kiss to his neck, right above the collar. "And I get to keep you. Get to claim you every day for the rest of our lives." "Forever?" Evan asked, turning in his arms. "Forever," Darius confirmed. "You think I'd let you go now? After everything we've built? You're stuck with me, boy." The word boy still sent shivers through Evan, still made him feel owned and cherished in the best way possible. That night, Darius took him with a possessive intensity that left marks Evan would carry for days. And when they were done, when Evan was sprawled across Darius's chest trying to remember how to breathe, Darius said, "Marry me." Evan's head shot up. "What?" "Marry me. Make it official. Not just in our hearts, but legally. Let me put a ring on your finger. Let everyone know you're mine permanently." Evan's eyes filled with tears. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious." Darius sat up, pulling Evan with him. "I want to build a life with you. Want to grow old with you. Want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine in every possible way." "Yes," Evan whispered. "Yes, God, yes." They made love again, slower this time, more tender, both of them understanding the significance of what they'd just promised each other. The wedding planning took months. They kept it small, just close friends in the gym community that had become like family. Morrison stood as Darius's best man. Tyler, who'd become a genuine friend despite the awkward beginning, stood for Evan. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. They wrote their own vows, and when it was Evan's turn to speak, he looked at Darius with tears in his eyes. "You saw me when I was invisible. You claimed me when I thought I was unwanted. You taught me that surrender isn't weakness, it's strength. You made me brave enough to be exactly who I am. I promise to keep giving you that surrender, that trust, every day for the rest of our lives." Darius's vows were equally emotional. "You walked into my gym looking lost, and somehow you found me instead. You gave me someone to protect, to care for, to build with. You made me want to be better, do better. I promise to keep claiming you, keep making you mine, for as long as we both live." When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in cheers, and Evan felt a sense of rightness that went bone deep. This was his life now. This was his future. This man who saw him completely and loved him anyway. The reception was at the gym, transformed with lights and decorations. They danced, celebrated, and Evan felt surrounded by love and acceptance in ways he'd never imagined possible. Late in the evening, Darius pulled him onto the empty gym floor, away from the party. He pressed Evan against the squat rack, the same place where they'd had their first real training session. "Right here," Darius said quietly. "This is where I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were it for me. Watching you struggle with that first workout, seeing how hard you tried despite being scared. I looked at you and knew you were going to change my life." Evan wrapped his arms around Darius's neck. "You changed mine first." They kissed as the party continued in the background, both of them understanding that this moment, this place, was where everything had begun, where Evan had taken that first terrifying step toward becoming who he was meant to be. 2 years became 3, 3 became 5. The gym expanded, with Evan taking over more of the day-to-day operations as Darius focused on training clients and developing new programs. They opened a second location, then a third. Built a small empire together. But more than the business success, they built a life. A home filled with laughter and love and the kind of deep connection that comes from truly knowing someone, from being fully known and fully accepted. They still had their morning training sessions, though now Evan could keep up much better. He'd transformed his body, built real strength, though he'd never be as naturally huge as Darius. But Darius loved him exactly as he was. Loved watching him grow and change while still being fundamentally the same person who'd walked through that door years ago. Their physical relationship evolved too. The intensity never faded, but it deepened, became more nuanced. Darius knew every inch of Evan's body, every sound he made, every way to push him to his limits and pull him back. And Evan had learned what Darius needed too. Had learned how to serve and please and surrender in ways that satisfied them both. The collar stayed, though it had been replaced over the years with newer versions. The current one was thick black leather, custom made, with their wedding date engraved on the tag. Evan never took it off, and his fingers would often go to it during the day, touching it like a talisman, a reminder of who he belonged to. One evening, 5 years after that first day, they lay in bed watching the city lights through the window. Evan was sprawled across Darius's chest, his usual position, both of them content and sated. "Do you ever regret it?" Evan asked quietly. "Taking on someone so inexperienced, someone who didn't know anything?" Darius's hand tightened in his hair. "Never, not for a single second. You were perfect for me exactly because you didn't know. Because I got to teach you, shape you, make you mine from the ground up. I was such a mess when we met. You were lost. There's a difference." Darius tilted Evan's face up to meet his eyes. "And I found you. Gave you direction, purpose, a place to belong. That's what we do for each other. I give you structure, and you give me someone worth building that structure for." "I love you," Evan whispered. "More than I have words for." "I know." Darius kissed him softly. "And I love you, my good boy, mine forever." Those words, good boy, still had the same effect they'd always had. Still made Evan feel seen and valued and exactly where he belonged. Still made him want to be better, do better, give more. They made love slowly that night, reaffirming their bond, their connection, their absolute certainty in each other. And when they finally slept, tangled together as always, Evan dreamed of the future, of growing old with Darius, of continuing to build their life together, one day at a time. He'd walked into that gym 5 years ago looking for a job and found so much more. Found purpose, found belonging, found love, found himself. And every morning when he woke in Darius's arms, when those massive hands would pull him close and that deep voice would rumble good morning, beautiful, Evan knew he'd made the right choice, the brave choice, the choice to stop hiding and start living. He was Darius's, completely, permanently, joyfully, and he wouldn't have it any other way. The Iron Temple Gym thrived, becoming known throughout the city as a place where people came not just to train their bodies, but to find community and support. Evan had become an integral part of that, his transformation inspiring others who walked in feeling lost and uncertain. He trained alongside Darius now, sometimes taking his own clients, teaching them what he'd learned. And every time someone thanked him for helping them, for seeing them, he thought about that first day, about how Darius had seen him. 10 years passed. The gym expanded to 5 locations. Evan and Darius became fixtures in the fitness community, known for their unorthodox methods but undeniable results. And through it all, their relationship remained the foundation. They still had their morning ritual. Still trained together, Darius's hands still possessive and demanding. Still came home to their loft, where Darius would claim Evan with the same hunger he'd had from the beginning. The collar around Evan's throat had been replaced many times, each version more refined than the last. The current one had small diamonds set into the leather, a gift for their 10-year anniversary. It was beautiful and expensive and completely impractical for gym work, but Evan wore it anyway, because Darius had given it to him. On their 10th anniversary, they returned to the cabin upstate, the place where Darius had given Evan his first collar, where they'd spent a weekend claiming each other completely. Darius built a fire while Evan watched from the couch, wrapped in a blanket. When Darius was satisfied with the flames, he turned to Evan with that predatory smile. "Come here, boy." Evan went without hesitation, settling between Darius's thick thighs, right where he belonged. Darius's hands framed his face, thumbs stroking his cheekbones. 10 years, Darius said quietly. 10 years since you walked into my gym and changed everything. Best decision I ever made. Coming to the gym or saying yes to me? Both, Evan said, leaning into Darius's touch. All of it. Every choice I made that led me here, to you. Darius kissed him slowly, thoroughly, tasting and claiming. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with desire and love in equal measure. "I have something for you," Darius said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box, and Evan's breath caught. Inside was a new collar, even more beautiful than the last. But this one had something different, a small lock and key, both made of platinum. "This one locks," Darius explained. "Only I have the key. Means you can't take it off without me. Means you're mine so completely that even that choice is taken from you." Evan's heart raced. "You want me to wear a collar I can't remove? Only if you're ready. Only if you want that level of surrender." Evan thought about it, about what it would mean to wear something he couldn't take off, to have that choice removed entirely, about the vulnerability of it, the trust it would require. Then he thought about everything Darius had given him, the security, the love, the acceptance. Thought about how Darius had never betrayed his trust, had always taken care of him, had always put his needs first. "Yes," Evan whispered, "I want it. Want to be yours so completely, there's no question." Darius's smile was incandescent. He removed the diamond collar carefully, setting it aside. Then he fastened the new one around Evan's throat, and Evan heard the quiet click of the lock engaging. "There," Darius said, satisfaction clear in his voice. "Now you're really mine. No taking it off, no hiding, no going back." Evan touched the collar, feeling the weight of it, the permanence. Instead of feeling trapped, he felt free, free from the last vestiges of doubt, free from the need to question whether this was real, whether he deserved it. The collar was proof, physical, undeniable proof that he belonged. "Thank you," Evan said, tears in his eyes. "Don't thank me yet," Darius said, his voice dropping to that dangerous rumble. "Thank me after I show you what it means to be locked into submission." What followed was hours of overwhelming sensation. Darius took him apart piece by piece, reminding him with hands and mouth and body exactly who he belonged to. And through it all, Evan's hands would go to the collar, feeling its weight, its permanence, and finding security in the knowledge that this was forever. When they finally collapsed together, both spent and satisfied, Darius held Evan close. "You know what I love most about you?" Darius asked quietly. "What?" "That you're still the same person who walked into my gym 10 years ago. Still that same combination of scared and brave. Still giving me everything, even when it terrifies you. You've grown and changed in so many ways, but that core, that essential Evan, who needs to surrender and be claimed, that's still there. Is that good?" "It's perfect." Darius kissed his forehead. "You're perfect, my perfect boy. Those words never got old, never stopped making Evan feel valued and seen and exactly where he belonged. They stayed at the cabin for the whole weekend, reconnecting and reaffirming their bond. When they finally drove back to the city Monday morning, Evan wore his locked collar proudly, and anyone who looked could see exactly what it meant. The years continued to pass. 15, 20. They grew older together, silver threading through Darius's hair, laugh lines deepening around Evan's eyes. But their connection never weakened. If anything, it grew stronger with each passing year. The gym became a legacy, something they'd built together that would outlast them. They trained a new generation of trainers, passing on what they'd learned. And some of those trainers came to them confused about their own desires, uncertain about what they needed. Evan would talk to them, share his own story, help them understand that surrender wasn't weakness, that finding someone who saw you completely and claimed you anyway was the greatest gift you could receive. On their 20th anniversary, they stood in the gym after closing, looking at everything they'd built. "We did good," Evan said quietly. "We did better than good." Darius pulled him close. "We built something that matters. Something real and lasting." Evan looked up at his husband, this man who'd changed his life so completely. The collar around his throat, the one Darius had locked there 10 years ago, had never come off. Evan had worn it through everything, through business meetings and gym sessions and every day of their life together, and he'd never once wanted to remove it. "Thank you," Evan said, "for seeing me, for claiming me, for making me brave enough to be exactly who I am." Darius kissed him, deep and thorough and full of promise. "Thank you for walking through that door. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being mine. Always yours," Evan promised. "For as long as we both live." "Forever," Darius agreed. "My good boy, mine forever." And as they locked up the gym and headed home to the loft they'd shared for 2 decades, Evan felt complete. He'd found what he'd been searching for, without even knowing he was searching. Found purpose and belonging and love. He'd submitted completely to someone who knew how to handle that gift. Had surrendered control to someone who used it wisely. Had given himself over to someone who treasured what he'd been given. And in return, he'd received everything. Security, love, acceptance, a life worth living and a man worth living it with. That scared boy who'd walked into the gym 20 years ago looking for a job had found so much more. Had found himself, had found home, had found everything he needed in the overwhelming presence of a man who'd looked at him and seen not weakness, but potential. Who'd seen not someone broken, but someone waiting to be claimed. And Darius had claimed him completely, permanently, joyfully, had made him his good boy, and kept that promise every single day since. As they climbed into bed that night, Evan's fingers went to his collar automatically. Darius's hand covered his, both of them touching the symbol of what they were to each other. "Mine," Darius said softly. "Yours," Evan agreed. "Always yours." And they fell asleep tangled together. 2 souls who'd found each other against all odds. Who'd built a life and a love that would last beyond time itself. Evan had learned the truth that day 20 years ago, the truth Darius had known from the beginning. That real strength wasn't in standing alone. It was in finding someone worth kneeling for, someone worth surrendering to completely. And every morning for 20 years, he'd woken up grateful that he'd been brave enough to take that first step, to walk through that door and into the arms of the man who would become his everything. His Darius, his owner, his love, his home. Forever his good boy. And forever grateful for the gift of being claimed so completely.